anywhere. It's up to you, New York, New York.
How are we doing? Welcome back to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast here on Facebook Live and YouTube. With me today, my man, Mr. Idris Salam, a.k.a. Bosco from the Bronx.
Yeah, orange and blue skies, baby. Let's do it.
Yes, sir. Indiana Pacers make the trek to the Mecca, Madison Square Garden, the world's most famous arena tonight. Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals takes over the sports world as an iconic rivalry adds another chapter to a very long book. Last season, these two teams met in the second round, the Pacers winning in 7 hard-fought games, a series that saw many Knicks go down, notably OG Anunoby, as well as Jalen Brunson going into that series. Former Knicks big man Julius Randle was inactive. And it's a series that saw the ascension of Dante DiVincenzo, who ultimately was traded with Randle for Karl Anthony Towns. But what's most interesting about this series is that Reggie Miller is going to be doing the games on TNT, and it's the final series that TNT is ever going to do.
You know, and you know what? It's fitting, man. You know, because we got the rivalry Indiana going back to, Reggie Miller in the '90s. And you know how the type of welcome we always give him. And even last year when Charles Hart said, "Hey," they said, "F you, Reggie." I like this series, man, and I like that TNT is doing it with Reggie because it sets up a good playoff. We don't like them; they don't like us. We got the history, and it's the last one for TNT. So this is a great finale, man. I'm hyped all types of ways for the team, for the playoffs, for the storyline, all of it.
Yeah, it's going to be electric. And we already know the big stars.
Yeah.
Cat, Brunson, Halliburton, Siakam. But in my opinion, the key player for the Knicks in this series is actually going to be Mikal Bridges.
Yeah, I agree. He's going to have to step it up because Indiana goes deep. They're very deep. They're young. They're fast. They're athletic. They're all of that. And we know what Jalen Brunson brings to the table. We know that. We know what Cat can do. Cat's got to play big also. We know what OG can do. He can go inside, outside. But we need Mikal Bridges. We need that fourth shooter and defender. We've seen what McBride can do off the bench. Precious had a little bit of time, but still. And, Mitchell Robinson is doing what he does. And I'm a big up to him because he's just playing his game, dude, on the boards, everything. But yeah, Mikal Bridges got to do his thing. We need him.
Yeah, Mikal Bridges, his splits at home are a lot better than in road games.
Yeah.
Deuce McBride, guy that I have to praise with how much he stepped up. And one of the biggest reasons why he's getting a significant amount of playing time is because over the summer, he really improved his mid-range and three-point game.
Yeah.
And defensively, he's the kind of player that never quits on a play. And I think the biggest thing is you don't lose a lot if Brunson has to sit and McBride comes in. And then ideally, towards the end of the second and fourth quarters, it's always valuable to have both of them on the court. I think another key thing in this series for the Knicks to be successful, Karl Anthony Towns has to do a better job of staying out of foul trouble.
Yeah, he has to, man. Um, McBride, you can't say enough about him. I mean, he's because of him, Brunson's not playing 40 minutes, 42 minutes, 45 minutes. You know what I mean? He's playing on the floor. He's like 35 minutes a game. He's able to sit down. Like I've seen a lot of the game, the last few games, 3-4 games. Brunson sat on the bench.
Out of the starters, he's the guy that's had the most rest because particularly
Yeah,
in the beginning of most second quarters, he takes a nice 6-minute reprieve. And then when you
yeah,
factor in, it's not really 6 minutes, it's more like 20 if you factor in your commercial breaks
right.
and your time at the free throw stripe.
Yeah,
But yeah, Mitch, the plus minus ratios on him have been terrific.
yeah,
But it's still a pretty short rotation, whereas Indy goes deeper into the 11th and 12th guys. Rick Carlisle, one of the premier coaches in the league, as is Tom Thibodeau. I don't think Tom Thibodeau has ever had a clearer path to the NBA Finals, with the exception of when he ran into the Heatles back when
yes,
Derrick Rose was playing at a high level. And speaking of Rose, his former backup, Emmanuel Quickley, used to come in for him and play at a decent level. And that is truthfully the last time, prior to the ascension of McBride, that the Knicks have had that kind of depth at the point guard position now where you feel comfortable.
I agree, 100%. I agree, and I like it. 'Cause, like, there's no sense in playing. There's no reason to play Jalen Brunson wire to wire. You need this guy. He's not a big guy. I mean, he's like the Energizer Bunny though, but he's not a big guy. This is our man. This is our leader. This is the guy that's going to take us to the promised land. We can't burn him out. And Tibbs, regardless of how the season ends, hopefully in the championship, hopefully next year he'll look to it and say, "Hey, I need to go deep. I need to be like Indiana. I need to be like Boston. I need to be like Detroit. I need to be like these teams that go 9 players deep." Because I got a real good starting rotation, a real good starting 5, but I don't need to burn this starting 5 out.
No, it's a good point, Idris. And according to former NBA star Gilbert Arenas, some of his intel and players that he knows, GMs that he knows around the league, he feels that the Knicks could potentially be more in on a Giannis trade than people realize. Of course, the San Antonio Spurs, as well as the Golden State Warriors, have been mentioned. And I will say this.
But you heard what Giannis said today, right? Well, yesterday, right?
No, I did not.
New York is one of his destinations. He kind of alluded to that, like I wouldn't mind playing in New York.
Well, this is the thing. It makes me wonder, what would we have to trade back in return? Because it's almost impossible to think that they're not going to ask for Karl Anthony Towns.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I love Cat. I really love Cat. But if I'm going to go Giannis, I'm going to trade him for Cat, and I'll give him maybe a first rounder or maybe a someone like Precious, or even I don't know. But I'm doing Mitch for Cat. The reason being with Mitch, I mean, I love Mitch's game because he can. I'm not Mitch on. I love Cat's game because he can play inside or outside. But I love Giannis because Giannis can go coast to coast. He can play outside, inside, and he's Mitchell Robinson and Cat together. He can play in the post on offense. He can back you down, and that's something Cat doesn't do enough.
Yeah,
and
he's
I
a
think,
frequenter of the free throw line. One thing
yeah,
that Cat's been getting under my skin on in this particular series has been taking threes from way back. I'm talking about 6 feet behind the line.
yeah, 35 feet, yeah.
Yeah, I could understand a couple of feet back, but it's just not a high percentage shot.
It's
And,
not.
Truthfully, in the Boston series, his 3-point game really was nowhere even in the stratosphere of how well he shot the 3 ball in the Detroit series. But you would have to think that if a trade is going to be facilitated with the Bucks and Knicks, that it would have to include Karl Anthony Towns. You would think, right? You don't think there's
Yeah.
any scenario where
Nah.
the Knicks could get this trade done without moving on from Cat.
Nah. And you know what? Him and Cat on the same team, I don't know if that'll work, man. Because you still got Mitch. I mean, if I had to trade, I would trade Cat for Giannis, and I would keep Mitch
Well,
because I
one
feel.
thing that's going to happen is the Knicks
Mhm.
are going to have to get another center regardless
Yeah,
via
yeah,
free agency or something of that such. I mean, it's pretty intriguing. But then again, let's say hypothetically, if we win it all, do we
oh
really
man,
want to part with Cat? That's another thing that'll be revealed.
yeah. You know, oh, man, that's tough. That's
Because the
tough.
bigger thing that you're seeing in today's NBA
Yeah,
is more and more big-time superstars are getting traded in the final year of their deals, doing sign and trades, and then extending with other teams immediately,
yeah.
where you're not really getting the creme de la creme of NBA stars hitting free agency as frequently as it was happening, say, in the 90s and in the earlier 2000s.
And you know, I also think now with the Knicks, you know, there were a time where no one wanted to come play for the Knicks because of
I
Dolan,
agree. I
you know,
agree.
because of Isaiah, because of Phil, and all this stuff now. But I think now, with the way the organization's being run, where, you know, the coaching is running the team, and you got guys on the team, you don't have the big person, because we don't have big personalities on our team, really. You think about it. We really don't. Our leader, Jalen Brunson, probably one of the humblest guys you're going to talk to in the media. He's like, he's not going to trash on the team. He's not going to do. He's going to, hey, we played our game. That's that.
To be
So,
honest with you, I think the largest personality in our team, and it still pairs in comparison to other rosters around the league, is probably Cat.
yeah, Cat. That's about it, right?
And
And
prior to Cat, I would say Dante DiVincenzo.
yeah, and they wasn't loud, you know.
No,
They
no.
were, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, and they wasn't loud. They are who they are, but they're not big, you know, like in your face type of guys, you know.
But if you
And
follow the trajectory of Coach Thibodeau, it's often been that way in
yeah,
his players.
right. And that's what I like about him. And it's a chance we'll get DiVincenzo back at the end of the year. And it was so great that Jalen Brunson took the money he took, and he left a lot on the table, and he did that so we can bring in people. You know, he
Well,
left
yeah,
a
that was a
hundred.
big part of it too, because I saw something that was a little amusing to me.
Yeah,
Former Knick Carmelo Anthony, who had a very great Knick career, but not a lot of Knick success in terms of winning,
yeah,
made a comment about that he's happy for Brunson, but that if he had the teammates that he had, he feels that he would have won a championship. And I'm like, I got to pause it right immediately, because when Carmelo Anthony came over, it required
yeah,
really busting up the roster.
yeah. We got rid of a lot of people. We
And
really
one thing
did.
going back to Melo's time in the league, particularly with the Knicks, or
Hmm.
even just if you look at his whole career path,
Yeah,
a few years that Melo really ascended and played at that next level, he
yeah.
needed that legitimate point guard. He had it with
Right.
Chauncey in Denver,
Yep.
and he had it with J. Kidd for the one solo season in New York. But if you
Yeah.
really look at it past that, and I'll be honest with you, you know what that tells me?
Yeah.
That while he might be the best scorer on every team he's ever played on, he wasn't the most important player on every team he's ever played on.
Precisely, because we had Amari Stoudemire also on that team. You know.
And I'll be
We,
honest with you, I think when we traded for Melo, Amari lost a lot of his game because of the way the offense had to be altered.
yeah, I like what we had. You know, we had a good young core, man. And yeah, we busted up. And I think, like I said, with this core we have, with this team, we got the right coach because he's hard nosed. He's like, look, I want the best out of you. This is the way it's going to be. We got a leader in Jalen Brunson he's silent, but he's not silent. You know, he's actually a leader. You know, we got great pieces. We got OG, who's not a loud person. He gets on the court, plays his game. We got Josh Hart, who's like a freaking maintenance man. You know, I do whatever I got to do to get it done. We got Mitch. He doesn't have the greatest of skills, but he does enough to help us out and help us win. So we got everything. And that's why I feel like Now that we're not a dysfunctional organization. It's New York. It's the Mecca, and players are starting to see wow, New York fans are like, wow, these guys are fans. We might be able to lure a superstar. Now, like I said, I prefer to have someone like Giannis. There's a chance Chenzo may come back. It depends on what's going on here. Who knows? Because
Yeah,
he's on the 1 year deal.
DiVincenzo, the earliest he could come back would be the 27 season because he's got one more year with
He got one more
Minnesota.
year, right? He got one more year, right? Exactly. So, but who knows what he'll do if Minnesota gets to the championship? Which I got them going to the championship. So
Well, I'll
he,
definitely be rooting for it because I personally think that the Timberwolves are a better matchup for the Knicks.
I do too, especially inside. I think we're better, especially inside.
Yeah,
Um,
I believe that the Thunder might be able to overwhelm the Knicks, but I do think the Timberwolves is a more friendly matchup. Not that it's going to be easy by any means, because you have a great talent in Anthony Edwards, and of course you have Julius Randle there, who's really picked up his game and fit
yeah,
in well with what they do over there. And of course you have the defensive specialist Rudy Gobert. Idris, what's your prediction for this Eastern Conference Finals?
Halliburton, Tim Burton, Elizabeth, whoever, Knicks in 6.
I'm going to go one game further than that. While I would be thrilled if the Knicks finished this out in 6, because of all the history and just the way that this series always seems to play out when they run into each other, I'm going to add one game to that. I'm going to say for the second year in a row, it goes to a 7th game once again in MSG. This time the Knicks win.
Yeah,
But I
and
would be happy with Knicks in 6 or better because, game 7s are very stressful.
yeah, I saw an article today where Trey Young was running his mouth saying how the Oklahoma City crowd is louder than the Knicks crowd. Yeah, whatever, man. I doubt that because our crowd goes beyond the stadium. Our crowd goes out into the streets. Our crowd goes out into the city. New York is not just like MSG. New York is New York City. When we went inside that building, the city is loud. And we've seen how we've done each win, how not only do the fans indoors celebrate, we got Fifth Avenue, we got 11th Avenue, we got the Avenue Americas, we got all of them filled up with people outside cheering for the Knicks. So no, there's no one who has a louder crowd than us because we got 10 million people. And I'm pretty sure some of those people out there are Brooklyn Nets fans. We got 10 million fans who
And I'm
cheer
going
for
to
the
tell
Knicks.
you right now,
Yeah.
you don't think I'm going to let Portnoy off the hook
Oh
or
no.
any of these Celtic fans. I want to make something clear. I get a charge out of the way that Boston fans particularly have been shitting on Knicks fans for the way that they've been celebrating, granted that it's only the second round, but something that I think the Celtics lose sight of, their fan base,
Yeah.
is that this is a passionate fan base that has always celebrated in this
Always.
form and fashion. And I'm gonna call out the Celtics a little bit here.
And
While I
hey, Richie,
understand,
don't forget this also. Boston and New York, in every sport, there's a rivalry. When we beat Boston, baseball, football with New England, hockey with the Bruins, and of course this, we celebrate. This is New York, Boston sports. They should know that.
hold on, my boy Richard Dorney,
Uh-oh.
oh,
Gordy in the building.
Dorney bringing the salt with him. Hats off to the Skankies and to the Skanky Nation. I ran my mouth at the stadium last night and I had a blast. Laughing with Yanks fans, laughing along. Great night. Okay, good. I'm glad you had a good time and also that you weren't incarcerated. I will
Right.
say that you overpaid for him. Nonsense that I heard all day yesterday and pretty weak, considering the Yankees were willing to do the same. There's two ways to look at it, Rich. Perhaps the Yankees drove the price up for the Mets to be those buyers. But no, I do think the Yankees initially did truly want Soto back. I will say this. I feel that the Mets lost some grand opportunities to capitalize yesterday, and I think the Yankees did the same thing in game 2. Uh, I was pissed off in that seventh inning when Anthony Volpe basically just had to keep his bat on his shoulders, and he couldn't resist, and
Yeah.
ultimately got himself out in that at bat. But
Yeah.
fortunately, the Yankees were able to drive into some long counts, and
Yeah.
Cody Bellinger came through in a big way.
Woo! Salami.
But the turning point in that game was actually Pete Alonso just misfiring at home plate. I think he rushed the play. It was actually a very
Yeah.
routine play that Pete
Yeah.
missed 9 out of 10 times.
He let that go too soon, man.
But these are two powerhouses this year. Make no mistake about it. The
Yeah.
Mets and Yankees are both World Series capable.
Yeah.
And I believe that this might be the first of 3 parts because we have Subway Series Part 2 in Queens later in the season.
Yeah.
And I will say this, something that I liked. The atmosphere was pretty terrific. And I also believe that what's interesting here is that the games were played with an intensity that would mimic a World Series game. And I think there's a lot to say about that.
You know what? That's the thing. That's New York for you, man. And I know people say, why you keep harking to New York? Because people got to understand New York sports. We compete no matter what's going on with our seasons. And even Yankees, Mets, Islanders, Rangers, Giants, Jets, no matter what's going on with the season, we play each other like it's a playoff game.
No question.
That's how
Richard
we are.
Dorney popping in again. I also had 60-plus Yankee fans boo me out of the stadium, follow me out of Gate 8 on my way to the car chanting, fuck Juan Soto. And Dorney did wear his Soto shirt yesterday.
Salute to you, Richard Doherty. Salute to you, man. You're a true New Yorker, though.
Oh, no question. And, big Met fan,
Yeah.
big time Met fan. And, I said it on a previous show how we went to the 21st anniversary, the 20th anniversary, I should say, of 9/11.
Yeah.
That was a good time. We were in Queens, and I was sitting amongst the 7 line.
Oh,
So when
okay.
you consider how many orange shirts you have, I was kind of standing up like a sore thumb. Dorney turned around, looked at Alex Rodriguez right in his face because they were in an open-ended cubicle with Big Papi screaming Ben Affleck at him.
Oh, damn, man.
Yeah, Dorney is that guy. Make no mistake.
My
Then
man.
game 2, we won night 1. Aaron Judge playing hero off of Jesus Familia. Game 2, Aaron Judge left the game with a migraine. That was the game where Lindor went deep 3 times, Stanton went deep twice. There was almost a team fight, and ultimately the Mets pulled away. And that's the game where Dorney produced that Puerto Rican flag when Lindor went yard.
Yeah. Hey,
It doesn't
Dorney,
matter what
you're just
sporting
like me,
event it
man.
is. Dorney always finds a way to get access to a Puerto Rican flag. He never comes with one, which I find kind of
Dorney's my type of fan.
Finally, Knicks in 6, fuck Reggie. Yeah, I second that emotion.
Exactly, same here.
All right, back to the Knicks. Brett, I'm doing the show. Can you stop doing that when I'm doing the show? All right, back to the Knicks. Last thing I want to say about in terms of celebratory stuff here with the Knicks fan base. What frustrates me about Boston fans, and I think it's kind of hypocritical, is that for 86 long years, the Boston Red Sox didn't win a damn thing.
Right.
For 40 long years, the New England Patriots didn't win a damn thing.
Right.
So, and let's be real, 1986 to 2008 is a pretty long time as well.
So long, almost 40 years.
So when you consider that they're being super hyper judgmental on a drought that the Knicks have had, that Knick drought still pales in comparison big time to the one that the Red Sox had.
You know what I tell them, man? I've been telling Celtic fans lately, I said, you know what? You guys are talking about how many championships you won, da-da-da. I said, but remember, I said the 2 times we won our championships, we beat the Boston Celtics to play the Lakers. And just like this time, we're stopping y'all from playing. We're stopping y'all from going to the title again.
Oh, and by the way, for all these Celtic fans that think it's not too even, we actually are lifetime 500 against the Celtics in the playoffs.
Thank you.
And we look to edge out Indy, get closer to Indy. I think Indy leads us by 2 series right now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's like 5-3. Yeah.
But one thing that I want to say about Boston and just things that annoy me with this is they'll be the first ones to get in their feelings when the Yankees talk 27 rings, and they'll talk about how long ago it was.
Yeah.
But are we going to ignore the fact that in the 60s when they ran things, that was predominantly the majority of that franchise's championships? Are we just going to ignore that one?
Oh, no, yeah. A lot weren't even on the planet yet.
Because the Celtics do the same thing.
Yeah.
Because in my lifetime, although the Chicago Bulls haven't sniffed an NBA Finals since 1998, they have the most championships in my lifetime.
Yep. I think I might have seen. Let me see.
Actually, that's not a true statement. The Lakers would have that edge now that I think about it, but in the Eastern Conference, it's been the Bulls.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because going back to the Magic era mixed with the Shaq and Kobe era, the Lakers would have that. But the point to be made is,
Yeah. Don't bring up
they don't win as frequently in this newer NBA as they claim to.
No, they don't.
And that's something that I find moderately comical. And I'll be honest, some of it was bad luck. Because the tragedy that happened with Len Bias, the tragedy that happened with Reggie Lewis, and of course Larry Bird's career getting cut short because of the terrible back ailments he had.
Yeah, the Celtic fans kill me bringing up that stuff. Like, look, and like I told one person this morning, I said, hey, no, just last night. I said, since you want to bring up titles, I said, let me know when the Red Sox get within 20 of the Yankees.
And what about Paul Pierce bringing enough salt to kill a slug?
Oh my God, salty ain't the word.
Saying that they defeated an injured Knicks team. First of all, Mr. Pierce. First of all, sir, the Knicks beat 3 of the games that the Knicks won. Jason Tatum played the whole game with the exception of the final 3.5 minutes of the game he got injured. That's number one.
And we were beating him by 9 right then when he went out. So, we still beat.
And number 2, how quick we forget that last year the Celtics had a free pass to the NBA Finals because every team they played in the East was injured.
Every team was hurt. Milwaukee.
I guess that doesn't count either.
Yeah, Milwaukee was hurt. Indy got hurt. All of them everyone was hurt. They forgot that.
Paul, listen, I'm just going to say this once and once only. Be thankful that Laker team that you ran into was still recovering from losing Shaq and still putting their own thing together. Because you guys are fortunate to at least have 1-1 with that squad that you had.
Yeah, because that'd have been a 3-peat for the Lakers.
Fall back, Pierce. Shut up.
Yeah.
And while I don't wish injury or violation on anyone, I could almost understand why that one incident went down when you were much younger, running your jibs.
Yeah.
Sit down, dude. You weren't even the best player on that team. That dude's name was Kevin Garnett.
Right, because he was already there, and they wouldn't do nothing.
And you weren't the X Factor either, because the X Factor was Jesus Shuttlesworth, aka Ray Allen.
Exactly, because before he got there, they weren't doing much winning.
They weren't doing any of that stuff, Paul. And I'm tired, and I'm going to defend LeBron just for once and once only. Not often this will happen.
Yeah.
But, Paul, why do you always recollect history and say that you had the game of games against LeBron when you had 38 and LeBron had 40?
Yeah.
Paul, sit down. Sit down. And Portnoy, go worry about your pizza, bro.
Yeah, Portnoy needs to sit down, too.
Yeah.
All of them.
It amazes me. It amazes me, the salt that they carry.
Yeah. It's of course a New York thing. That's why. No one had us. Yeah, nobody had us to win anything, and only one that picked us to win was Kendrick Perkins.
And I gotta give him props for that.
Yep.
Stephen A. Smith tried to flip flop in the middle of it. I'm like, no, sir.
Yeah. After like game 2, I think it was, Perkins said it's over. Knicks gonna win it in 5.
I will say this: Kevin Garnett has a decent admiration for these Knicks.
Yeah, that one in the same interview, he praised the Knicks. He praised the crowd. Yeah, He's like, look, man, you got to get us some props. He said, New York came out, da da da. Yeah, because Garnett kept it 100, man. Paul Pierce, dude, sit down, man.
Now, Idris, I
Teamwork.
wanted to hit on this.
Yeah.
Back to the Yankees Mets. Juan Soto had a real forgettable series. What are your thoughts on that?
Hey, can't go across the street, think the grass is greener. Then we came back to Yankee Stadium. You know, I loved it because the first game, that one section of Yankee Stadium, when they announced Soto, they all turned their backs.
Yeah,
That's
the
it.
bleacher
The
creatures were
Bleacher Creatures,
definitely in
yeah.
unison on that one.
I love that. And deep down, I think he I think he has his regrets. Yeah, he's on a great team. He's on a real good team. I'm not gonna lie. The Mets are doing their thing this year. So I'm not gonna hate on him, you know. But I think he got back to the stadium and he seen what was there. I think he was shook. He went 0-4 yesterday. He went 0-4 yesterday. I think Saturday he got grounded out, flied out, and got these bases on balls. You know, so yeah. I was happy with us. So, you know, he's not a Yankee. He went across the street just like Curtis Granderson did, just like a few others did. And he's going to see the same fate. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
yo.
only one base hit. He did draw 4 walks, which is something he's always been able to do.
Yeah.
But I must admit, not really as big a factor as I expected him to be in this series.
Same here. I thought he would do more. I'm glad he didn't because I know what he's capable of doing. So I'm glad he didn't show up. I'm pretty sure next time around we go to Shitty Field, as I call it. I think he'll step up to the plate, but we'll see. You know, Mets Yankees are just it's a tough series regardless of what's going on with the team.
And it was good for the morale of the Yankees, considering that in a 4-game series last year, we got swept. This year, they go back to 6 games the way that they had it for so many years.
Yeah,
It started as a 3-gamer where it would be Yankee Stadium 1 year, Shea another, and then ultimately that became City and the third Yankee Stadium installment.
yeah.
But you know, recently I was on a show without you, but I did want to get your feedback on this. Pete Rose, Shoeless Joe Jackson, no longer on the banished list from baseball, as well as 15 others. What are your thoughts on this, Idris?
Man, I'm glad. I'm glad. I think they should have been off. I think they should have been in a Hall of Fame anyway. I'm glad. I'm just sad that Pete Rose passed away in October, and here we are in May, and it's a chance for him getting in the Hall of Fame. I think him and Shooters Joe and others should get in. Even with the steroids, I think those guys should get in. You just have a wing, notice and say, hey, these guys from the steroid era, da 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 da. Because the numbers Pete Rose put up, man, are monumental. And you cannot leave a guy out of the Hall of Fame who you can really see who was probably one of the top 10 baseball players of all time. You have to put a guy like that. Shooters Joe Jackson, the same with him. Like they said, they showed that he really didn't know. He was a country guy, blah, blah. He didn't know what was going on. He just got caught up in some nonsense, and they banned him. And I think he got a raw deal also. Even the other players that was involved, they proved that they really, they weren't really involved in it. They just got caught up in a scandal. I'm glad they're off that list, though. And hopefully when they do vote, these guys say, hey, put these guys in the hall. You got to put them in there, man.
Yeah, one thing that my late father always spoke to me about in reference to the Shoeless Joe Jackson thing was
Mm-hmm.
that he felt that before anyone, he had to be the first one inducted.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
something that has always drawn my ire, particularly after the White Sox and Yankees made history in the first Field of Dreams game,
Yeah.
is that you're making money off of a phenomenal movie which featured Ray Liotta playing the character of Shoeless Joe Jackson, yet you don't include him in your Hall of Fame.
Exactly.
And the Rose one is a little more complex for the reasons that when Giamatti banned Rose from the game, Rose complied with signing a paper which basically acknowledged that he would never be allowed to be in the Hall of Fame. So Rose basically signed it.
Yeah.
But posthumously, there is enough of a loophole where now some of this is making sense. And I also think they're listening to the heartbeat of the fans, because I've said this so many times on different shows over the years. You know, my problems with Major League Baseball are deep on the level of the morality police on certain things, but then they ignore other things. Of course, one of the most gleaming examples was the atrocities of those that played in the Negro Leagues that didn't have an option of being included in MLB, that finally those men get their roses.
Yeah.
You know, shouts out Babe Ruth. He was a man who frequented Negro League games, not only
Yeah.
as an observer, but also as a player, because
Yeah.
Babe always wanted to compete with the best, and he acknowledged how great the Negro League players were. And
Yep.
another thing, Idris, that frustrates me is that they want to just, similar to how WWE erases certain things in history that might be controversial, whether it was Roddy Piper, half black, half white,
Yeah.
or whether it's the Chris Benoit stuff, things of that nature, the Owen Hart stuff. Where I'm
Mm-hmm.
getting at is you can't erase your history, because
No.
you can't tell the story of baseball unless if you tell how the sport got saved. And whether you like it or not, the steroid era saved the game of baseball,
Right.
because after 1994, so many fans were just so disgusted and decided to just turn their back on the sport. And the steroid
100%.
era later that decade was what happened to bring the fans back to the ballpark. And I like your idea. I think the way you said it is the way it should be. And, you know, there's certain generational talents like a Barry Bonds, a Roger Clemens, and Alex Rodriguez, who, although I don't condone their choices,
Yeah.
you're not going to convince me, or anybody else would be able to convince me, that those three men, among others, wouldn't be Hall of Famers without that stuff.
You know what? Barry Bonds was a Hall of Famer before he went to Frisco. His numbers at Pittsburgh put him in the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely.
You know, and like I said, I don't condone what they did. I really don't. But it's part of the game. It's part of the history of the game. Like you said, the steroid era brought people back to the stadium. That race between Mark McGwire and oh shit, I forgot his name. Sammy
He forgot.
Sosa.
Well, he also forgot what color he was. You
Yeah,
said
yeah,
Sammy Sosa?
that's why I forgot his name. Yeah, that's why
Yeah.
what's that guy's name? Yeah. Sammy Sosa. That race was something else, man. It got people back in the seats. People were tired of the striking and all this crying, all this complaining about the money, da, 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 da. And it got people back in the seats. When Barry Bonds got up there and he did his run and broke that record, people are like, yeah, you know, it brought people back to the seats, back to the stadiums. So you have to include it. Like you said, the Field of Dreams, the freaking show is based basically on the guy who you don't want in the Hall of Fame.
It's overwhelming evidence, overwhelming, that Barry Bonds used performance-enhancing drugs. It's
Yeah,
overwhelming.
yeah,
The thing that I suggested on a recent show is that you put a lot of these guys that you feel should be in the Hall in situations. You want to sign papers? Here, sign this one.
yeah.
The one statute. What's up, Nast? How you doing, buddy? The one statute that should be followed if you want these guys to make the Hall is that they got to go before the youth, talk about their issues, and talk
Yeah,
about why it doesn't pay to cheat.
I agree. That'd be great.
Give these guys a chance at redemption.
That'd be great.
And of course, there's going to be some guys that have egos too big that they won't do it. And sadly, Barry Bonds is one of those guys, because Barry Bonds, I will defend him in between the lines as being a phenomenal, phenomenal player.
Hmm.
But he's also a phenomenal asshole.
Yeah, and you know what?
And
I
doesn't
would.
have a smidge of the humility that his father Bobby or his godfather Willie Mays have.
And you know what? I would use what you just said too. If you don't want to do this, you don't go in the Hall.
That's it.
Because this is about as easy as you get. We're gonna let you in the Hall on one condition. You speak to the youth about this and that. If you can't speak to the youth, take your time out to speak to the youth or whatever, you don't want to get in the hall. Because the very youth you don't want to speak to are the ones who look up to you and those who are going to play the game that you play. And some of them may go into the hall that you could be in. I
I
think that's
mean,
a great idea, dude.
I mean, it's the only thing that's reasonable because
Yeah,
who's
it's like
offended? Who's really offended?
it's just like community service. This is
I mean,
what you're
who's
doing.
really offended at this point when you look at the atrocities that go on in the world?
Right.
You know, at
It's
in the big scheme of atrocities in the world, this is small potatoes.
it's like community service.
And I got
That's all
news
it
for you,
is.
Idris. Jose
Mhm.
Canseco, people like to talk about him. I give him props for keeping it real and calling out the institution's hypocrisy from day one
Saying yeah. Yep. Yep.
because he got blackballed at a different level because he
Yeah.
was essentially the whistleblower. But I'd rather listen to a guy that's telling the truth, even if it hurts his own shit,
Yeah.
as opposed to listening to other guys that are lying through their teeth. But I'm gonna go as far as saying this.
Hmm.
I don't think Mark McGuire's a Hall of Famer, and I don't think Sammy Sosa's a Hall of Famer.
I don't either. I don't either.
But you
I
know
don't
who
either.
should be in the Hall? Roger Clemens, Alex
Yeah.
Rodriguez, Barry Bonds,
Yeah.
Don Mattingly, Thurman Munson belong there,
Don't know why they are not in there.
as does Keith Hernandez. Keith Hernandez
Keith
belongs there
Hernandez.
too.
Yeah. I
Because
don't
this
know
is
why.
this is my part on that.
Yeah.
This is my part on that. How many times did Mattingly get screwed out of All-Star games in favor of Oakland's Mark McGuire?
Can't count them. So many. You can't count them.
And and this is the other caveat that pisses me off with Don Mattingly. While I'll be the first to admit that his production was not even in the stratosphere of the 6 great years that he truly had, including a batting title, an American League MVP. He almost won another batting title. His teammate Dave Winfield edged him out.
Yeah.
His lone postseason, he hit over 400, has one of the most iconic home runs in the history of Yankee Stadium.
Hmm.
And, you know, they talk about the morality thing.
Yeah.
Mattingly was one of those dudes that always did everything right. Where's
Yeah.
his reward for doing everything right in an era where so many used and he didn't?
And you know what? With Madden, also, I would base Madden's number on the period he played in. Now, in today's game, where he did, would be like, it would be okay numbers. But back
You know
then,
how
his
they
numbers were pretty
included
decent.
guys? You know how they included guys that did service time for the
Yeah.
military?
Yeah.
I think that guys who you knew were gonna get the numbers if they played a few more years, some of them should be no-brainers. Like a Thurman Munson's even worse.
Yeah.
Because how could death cheat a guy out of the Hall of Fame when he was the best catcher in Major League Baseball at the time of his death?
Yeah.
Arguably the best New York Yankee. You could take a coin, flip it in the air, and it's either going to fall on 15 or 44, but they were equally
Uh,
important.
oh yeah, big time. Big time.
You know,
Yeah.
as Reggie said, he was the straw that stirred the drink. And while on
Yep.
some levels I agree with that, but Thurman was the heart and soul.
Yeah, he was. And see, that's the problem with baseball, man. There are players that should be in, and they've just got overlooked. For what reason? I don't know. I think baseball needs to go back. With this now, now they got Joe Shulish in there. I mean, he's off the list, and Pete Rose. Go back to that time and start bringing putting some of the guys in the Hall of Fame, man. A lot of those guys have been gone a long time, and they had the days that they played approach like it's been 100 years since Shoeless Joe played. You know,
Yeah, and the
and it's a
Shoeless
lot
Joe
of.
one, the Shoeless Joe one, Idris, in my genuine opinion, off the
Mhm.
rip, was the biggest hypocrisy amongst baseball, with the exception of
Yeah,
the Negro Leagues,
yeah,
because of the
because you
fact
did
that they made so much money off a field the tragedy I already
right.
alluded to.
Exactly. You got a guy who, not the same. You got a guy who you banned from the league, but you're making money off of his name and his story. But he's not good enough. He's not respectable enough to be in the Hall of Fame. I think everyone respects Shoeless Joe Jackson. Everyone knows what he did. No one's not blaming him. I'm like, this man should be in the Hall of Fame.
My grandfather today happens to be his death anniversary. Rest in peace, Grandpa Yogi. It's
Salute.
been 22 years since we lost him. He was a funny dude. You and him would have hit it off. But something that I got to say about my grandfather with regard to this Pete Rose topic, he wasn't with all this diplomatic shit that me and you were talking about.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm going to quote him. I don't give a fuck how much you gambled. That guy was the best hitter that ever lived.
That's how I feel.
And my grandfather's thing was that he's like, everything he did wrong was as a manager, not as a player.
Exactly, man. That's what I'm saying. That's how I feel
Was
about
he going to
Shooting
make the Hall
Joe.
of Fame as a manager? No.
No. No, because he wouldn't. No way. That's how I feel about Shooting Joe and Pete. Yes, exactly.
So let me ask you a question. If Bob Uecker used steroids, would they have canceled him out, being that his path to the bigs was as a broadcaster? You get what I'm
Right.
saying, dude?
Exactly.
Come on,
Exactly.
man. Stop insulting our intelligence. I'm not saying that what Pete Rose did was okay. And another thing, too, I'm going to keep it a buck. I don't like Alex Rodriguez as a person. I don't like Barry Bonds as a person. And I don't
Right.
like Kurt Schilling as a person. And you know what?
Right.
Roger Clemens is a bit of an asshole, too.
He's an ass too, yeah.
But they
But
belong in the Hall.
they belong in the hall.
Andy Pettitte has the most postseason wins. He belongs in the Hall.
Why is he sitting on the sideline?
Will
Exactly.
somebody explain to me why Bernie Williams isn't in the Hall? He's arguably the best player for at least half of the seasons that he played with Jeter.
And see, that's what I'm saying. Baseball is so political, man. It's just so much. There are so many plays that should be like who was that got put in last year? We said no way. Who was that last year?
Scott Rowland?
Scott Rowland? No, was it Scott Rowland?
I think it was Scott Rowland. And the
I
thing
think it
is,
was.
I liked Scott Rowland as a ball player,
Yeah,
or Joe Mauer even.
yeah,
But nobody's going to convince me that those two dudes, especially Mauer being a former catcher, nobody's
right.
going to tell me he was better than Thurman Munson. You're insulting my
No,
intelligence if you try that.
no, no. He wasn't. And see, that's what I'm saying. And
Munson is one of the biggest atrocities next to Shoeless Joe because it was death that cheated him out of that.
he was on his path to a Hall of Fame career, dude.
So if Roberto Clemente's final hit wasn't 3,000 and say if it was 2181, would he not be in the hole?
Right.
Makes you wonder. Makes
Yeah,
you wonder.
baseball needs to go back and say, hey, let's start putting some of these guys in the hall. Let's not wait until 2027 or 2028. Let's get these guys and say, hey, we're putting these guys in the hall.
And the other problem too, Idris, is that you have too many sports writers who have hard-ons. Like the fact that Jeter
Yeah,
didn't get 100% is a joke. Similar to how Fred Hickman, rest in peace,
yeah,
made sure that Shaquille O'Neal didn't get 100% in the in the Naismith Memorial.
yeah. That Fred Hickman thing, I didn't. Yeah, rest in peace. But I don't
I
stand him.
actually liked Fred Hickman, but he got
I
that
did
one
too.
wrong.
Yeah, he did. He really did. Yeah, it's crazy, man. They need to just go back and say who belongs in the Hall of Fame. Let's put our shit aside.
You know what would make a lot of sense, Idris?
Yeah,
You get a case like a Don Mattingly. Get 25 or 30 of your best players from that era and let them vote on it. His peers. Let them vote on it.
yeah,
Do we think Barry Bonds belongs in the Hall? Get 25 to, well, maybe not because they were all using steroids. That one could be a little murky. But I do believe that like guys like Munson, guys like Mattingly, guys like Keith Hernandez, it's an insult to everyone's intelligence if you're holding these dudes out.
yeah,
You know, and it's the Hall of Fame for baseball, not the Hall of good guys. You know, that's
yeah,
another thing that I don't quite understand. Because if they think that guys in the 60s and guys in the 70s and guys in the 50s weren't doing certain things that were immoral, then you got to take a deeper look at yourselves in the mirror, Major League Baseball.
yeah. I agree, man. It's I think they just need to go back and look and be like, hey, these guys belong in the hall. These guys belong in the hall. Let's get them in here. Let's get them in here. Let's bring some integrity back to the game. Let's get them in here.
Yeah, because if you're going to keep keeping the best guys off of stupid things out, then you're essentially making it with the same credibility as the WWE Hall of Fame, which, by the way, doesn't even have a building.
Right, exactly.
No, say hi to Mr. Idris.
Hi.
Hey, what up? What's up? No, what? What's up, man?
$100 later, and he's got Legos for days that he's been working on. This kid puts them together, man. He's nonstop with his work ethic with this.
Build me a house, man, so I can move to Florida.
You heard what Mr. Idris said? He wants you to build him a house so that way he can move to Florida.
Rent free, baby.
So
Yeah,
Idris, shifting it over to a couple of other things going on in the sports world.
Mhm.
Antonio Brown, Angel Reese, anything you want to hit on with regard to those two?
Antonio Brown is Antonio Brown. I don't even want to put any more time into that guy. Angel Reese, Angel Reese, she's who I said she was. Her being called out in that interview the other day when the guy asked, you said, made comments about Caitlin Clark not being a star. She said, next question. It said all I needed to say because that's what I try to tell her stupid fans. Because I was once a fan of her myself, I'm no longer a fan. It goes to show what she's about. And then her actions over the weekend with Caitlin Clark. She respects Caitlin Clark as a player, and I'm pretty sure they respect each other. But she does not like Caitlin Clark.
No,
As for the race,
not by any means. It's been proven
she doesn't like
without
her.
really having to
She doesn't like her.
investigate the topic too much.
As for the racist thing, there's racism. They said, people made racist remarks against Angel Reese. True, because I've heard it. However, I've heard racial remarks on both, and I'm black, and I've heard my black people say, "Oh, Caitlin Clark is benefiting from white." Because no, that girl got where she is because she got game. So it's racism on both sides, and it needs to stop. Stephen A. Smith made a point today saying, "Hey, let them say what they say because the only thing they do is exposing themselves. When they show you who they are the first time, believe them. There's racism on both sides. I always tell people,
And I'll
black
go
people
as
can."
far as saying that the
Mhm.
biggest difference, outside of the fact that Caitlin Clark's a better player,
It's
but
not
the
even close.
biggest difference between Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark is one is always trying to make a dual career while working in the WNBA,
Right.
where the other one is steady working on the level of perfecting the craft, similar
Trying
to
to be
one
the
of
best
her
that she
hoop idols, the late great Kobe Bryant.
she's trying to be the best she can be at her sport. Exactly. And even if, and I get a lot of flack from black people because of what I said. But look, I watch these two when you speak to them in interviews. Caitlin Clark speaks with class. She doesn't put the attention on her. Like the interview she had this weekend when they talked about the file. She said, look, let's not make it any bigger than what it was. Da 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 da. She kept it calm. But when you listen to Angel Reese speak, it's a bunch of bullshit. There's nothing. It's like bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what separates the two off the court. I can't listen to Angel Reese off the court. I can't listen to her period because here's a woman, and I don't care. I'll be Stephen A. Smith right now. I get tired of the sexual exploitation of herself, but she complains about it. And her fans say people are hating, but they don't look at the big picture. I'm not going to call names out because I want to, but I'm not going to.
I'm glad that you said that because I'm going to tell you the difference.
Mhm.
Her sexual exploitation on enough metrics is her own choice. Whereas you
Mhm.
take someone, let's go Hollywood for a minute. You take someone like a Rosie Perez or someone before her like a Pam Grier.
Yeah,
They unfortunately were in situations where they had to show more
yeah,
before they can show what they were truly capable of, which was both of them in their own ways being more than capable of standing alongside some Hollywood heavy hitters and
yeah,
showing that they both were great actresses. We talk
hmm
about the black exploitation of the Pam Grier era.
yeah.
how with Rosie Perez, they always had to paint her as limited verbiage, trying
Yeah,
to paint her like very hood. But the reality is that while Rosie definitely could move hard in the streets, she had a lot more depth to her.
right.
And I think as she has gotten older and got more roles, bigger roles, same thing with Pam Grier. I think that what some of Pam Grier's best acting was actually in Jackie Brown.
Jackie Brown was great. I was gonna say Jackie
Yeah,
Brown,
one of
man.
the best movies I've ever seen. And you got some heavy hitters in there. You got a young Chris
Yeah,
Tucker cameoing,
yep,
Samuel L. Jackson alongside Robert De Niro,
yep,
of course, Pam Grier. Just a phenomenal movie.
yeah. And see, that's my issue, man. And like I said, I get a lot of heat from my people, but they fail to realize I see the big picture. I just don't go with anything. And the fact is, when you listen to the two talk, one speaks as, hey, look, we're in this together, da da da, to where the other one makes it about themselves. The other one complains a lot. So when one is like, hey, just don't worry about it. And I always say the proof is in the pudding. One's a great player. One is maybe average. Yes, Caitlin Clark gets a lot of not Caitlin Clark. Angel Reese gets a lot of rebounds. But let's take a look at her shots. I saw what she said in her interview. She's right-handed, and I'm like, well, why are you shooting the ball left-handed? She shoots foul shots. She shoots layuffs left-handed, and I'm like, well, that's why she's missing everything. If you're right-handed, why are you shooting left-handed? And
There's only a few players that were able to truly do that at either level, talking man versus woman, whatever. Cheryl Swoops,
yeah,
Cheryl Miller. If we're talking about the men, guys like Larry Bird,
hmm,
Michael Jordan come off the top of my brain, Pistol Pete Maravich,
yeah,
the original Black Jesus, Earl Port Monroe,
Earl Pearl. Yep, Earl Pearl, yep. It's that,
who was referenced oddly enough in He Got Game, where the Shuttlesworth character played by Ray Allen, when
hmm,
Denzel was giving him the reasoning behind choosing that name Jesus.
yeah,
You know, of course, it evolved into a name that many peers or even those that came after him would call Michael Jordan.
yeah,
But yeah, I'm glad that this touched the surface, because it goes definitely deeper than just in a sport. It's happened in Hollywood, but
hmm,
it's very porous to mix the wrong stuff together, because that's what would separate, say, like a Colin Kaepernick cause,
hmm,
a guy who has lived it, breathed it, and done it, versus other people who are just in it for the quick thing.
yeah. And
You
see,
know,
that's my thing about the Reese Clark thing. Because I was a fan of both. I watched Angel Reese when she was at Maryland, and Clark. When she came to Iowa, I was like, who is this chick? Because I'm a college sports fan.
and then
And
with the
I,
LSU rivalry with Caitlin's team,
yeah,
when Reese
and,
drew the victory there, it had a similar appeal to like Bird versus Magic.
and and that's how it could have been. Because I remember when Bird Magic came into the league. Yeah, I'm that old, but I remember when they came into the league. They didn't like each other, but it was a rivalry dislike.
And
You
I
know,
also think that part of it, to a level, was the great unknown, because Larry was from a place where he wasn't surrounded by a lot of black folks. In the Magic's case, he
right?
wasn't surrounded by a lot of white folks. And I think some of it had to do with the great unknown. But when they
Yeah,
shot that commercial for Converse,
yeah.
and
Oh yeah,
Larry's mother invited Magic in for some
yeah.
grub, and they really
Look,
got to talking about the game that they both loved, I think a lot of that shed its skin, and they realized, damn, we got a lot more in common than we realized.
right, that's what I mean. And see, their hatred was just rivalry. That was it. It was just rivalry. Boston, L.A. And I remember Larry Bird at Indiana State. And I remember Magic Johnson at Michigan State. And I remember that championship game. And I think the difference between Caitlin Clark and Reese compared to Magic and Bird is Bird was good. Magic was good. Caitlin Clark is good. Angel Reese is average. Let's just be real. She's average.
And she
And
could get better, but she has to put more time into the craft.
yeah,
And
that
I'm not
too.
convinced that she's willing to make that sacrifice.
That too. And I remember when they came into the league and started balling against each other, their their hatred was on the court. They showed it on the court the way they played. But off the court, you didn't hear nothing. I mean, you heard people. Of course, you had the racism. Of course, you had that. But in terms of seeing who was better, it was more. It was more people talking sports wise. To where here, like you didn't back when I remember when they came out, you didn't hear where Magic hated Bird and Bird hated Magic. It was just it was basketball. To where here, it seems like it's more off the court. And see, and I don't mean to trash Reese. I don't, but I'm going by what I'm seeing. And what my people got to realize is I go by what I see and not how I feel. And what I'm seeing is a woman who's jealous of another one. But see, she don't have to be jealous. Get in the gym. Work on your get. Caitlin Clark works out with men on the court.
Big facts.
Angel Reese, get one of these NBA players and hey, show me how to play in the post. That's all she got to do.
No, I couldn't agree more. And you know what's interesting? You know how we often on this show talk about how history is cyclical?
Yeah.
Bird and Magic, with that dynamic, saved the NBA in the 80s.
Yeah.
Clark and Reese got the best ratings the WNBA has ever seen, but the problem is that the mix with ignorant fans and the mix with sourpusses who have been vested in this league longer, who are offended and annoyed by the success and the blow up that Caitlin Clark is bringing, is ultimately going to be the demise of this league.
And I'm expanding onto that. A few black women told me this. One of them you know very well. This is what they told me. Women are the biggest haters of women. And when those two women came out, when them two women came to the league, Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, I saw what they meant. First one was Diana Taurasi with her mouth. Everyone was saying all this talk, but they all targeted Caitlin Clark. They didn't target Angel Reese. And you see how she was targeted on the court.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't trying to fight, they were trying to beat this girl up. Now, and then when men were saying, making suggestions to make the game better, the women shut it down. And like you just said it, the demise of this league will be from within. They are not. If I was the commissioner of the league, I would have sent the memo to each owner. Look, we got some stars coming out of this league. Cardosa, who also went to the field, but she's a top 10 pick. We got her. We got Clayton Clark. We got a bunch of girls coming to this league. And right now, we are getting the biggest ratings we ever had because of what college basketball did.
Bro, the fact that Reese and Clark were able to pull the collegiate NCAA tournament higher ratings than the men, that spoke volumes.
Right. And when they came into the league, they got the highest ratings ever for the WNBA. The highest, and they should have expanded on that and say, hey, we got the ratings. The college football, college basketball set us up. We are ready to roll. But they had this disdain within. The women did not support each other. The black players went for Reese. The white players went for Caitlin Clark. And it was just a back and forth. But when it was all said and done, all the hatred was towards Clark. And I know black people get mad at me. No, I've followed this league since the day it came out. All the hatred went towards Caitlin Clark. But she's the one that brought the ratings to the freaking game. They literally had to move. They literally had to move games to other stadiums because of her.
Yeah. It would be very ignorant to think that that's not real. Before we get out of here, a couple of final thoughts in a couple of words.
Yeah.
Diddy's gonna get pardoned, bro.
I know. I said that yesterday. I know. He's gonna get pardoned, and it's a shame.
We'll see, but I don't feel good about it. I have a ominous feeling that that's the way it's gonna go.
Me too. He's gonna get pardoned,
For the final
regardless.
thought,
Yeah, that was it.
Loved his artist. Sean Diddy Combs never did. I
Say that again.
wholeheartedly believe that Suge had a lot more love for his cash cow than Diddy ever had for his, because Diddy wanted to replace his cash cow with himself, which he
Yeah,
did.
yeah, I
The
agree.
fact that Diddy made sure that Christopher Wallace wasn't on that Rolling Stone cover page tells you everything you need to
Wow,
know about the kind of
everything you
man
need.
that Diddy is.
Yeah, yeah, he'll get pardoned, man, and it's a shame because there's a lot of stuff he did that we know he did. That if one of us done it, we get locked up for. We're not coming home
No, for sure, for sure. And
ever.
I think about the many lives he crushed out. So many, too many to name. We could do a whole nother show on that. To be honest with you.
You know what? And my last word on this basic is, if he did the things he did, or he's accused of, and they pardon him, you might as well let R. Kelly out.
Yeah.
I'm not for it. I'm not for it. And I want people to know I'm not for him getting out. That's not what I'm saying. But if you're gonna let Diddy out, you might as well let him out.
Yeah, it's just the hypocrisy is
Yeah,
real with what's going on here, and it's like it ranges from Cassie Ventura, the many
yeah,
artists that were taken for terrible rides, the two
yeah.
biggest cash cows for their respective rap labels in the 1990s. Tupac Shakur, of course, the notorious B.I.G., who I wholeheartedly believe that Diddy had a hand in both deaths.
Me too. Me too.
But
Um,
that now you have this whole other thing with Keefe D with regard to the Tupac situation, where people are really questioning the information in itself of authenticity, if he even wasn't as involved as he is. I personally think he was. Sometimes I
Me
think they
too.
try to pull the wool over your eyes, and sometimes things are as obvious as they look.
Yeah, I believe the same thing. I think he was
Tupac
involved
died
in
because he
both.
crossed the line that he couldn't jump back on the other side of.
Yeah,
Now, as far as Christopher Wallace goes, to say that was a setup would be an understatement. That's about as obvious as changing JFK's parade route.
even Biggie said that before he passed away. I'm next. He said it.
Yeah, sadly he did.
Yeah, he knew it. He knew it.
Yeah, sadly he did, and I
Yep.
believe that. I mean, Gene Deal. Some people get tired of listening to him, but one thing I gotta say, he's been keeping it true since day one when he was on
Since
this.
day since day one, never changed the story.
No doubt.
Yep.
Well, until next time, he is Idris. I am Richie. If you haven't already, please make it a point to check out the VMix on live365.com. Also, check out the Casual Convo Show, the Sports
One more
Corner
thing.
with Mr. Nast, as well as the Basement Show with Mr. Nast. Check out the Bleed Blue Show and make it a point to subscribe here, the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast on YouTube.
One more thing. One more
And
thing. I gotta say one shout out.
yeah, go ahead.
Shout out to Alexander Ocasio Cortez and her people for her 2 drops y'all gave me. I hope y'all see this. I appreciate it. Richie appreciates it. He hadn't heard the drop yet, but yes, we appreciate it.
No, shouts out for sure. Definitely humbled and thankful for that. Until
Yep.
next time, announcements will be dropping for our next show, and we're also going to be hitting on some NFL in the near future, talking
Yeah.
talking about some of these rookie mini camps and what we're taking away from them. And Idris is going to take everybody to quarterback school. We're going to organize one on that as well.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Have a great day, everyone. We out.
You.